Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X-Men Volume 2, number 35, cover dated August 1994. So it's been a few issues, 4 to be precise, since the wedding of Cyclops and Jean Grey. And here they are back after their honeymoon on a fresh adventure. Who or what is Sunset Grace? Asks the cover caption, and we shall find out inside this issue. Now, the guest artist is Liam Sharp, and here he is penciling the cover. I was a fan of Liam Sharp's art at the time, inked here by Robin Riggs and coloured by Lovern Kindersky, otherwise known as Digital Chameleon. And where I first encountered Liam Sharp's artwork and where I really enjoyed it was this, Death's Head 2, the Death's Head 2 4-issue miniseries published by Marvel Comics UK, an imprint of Marvel Comics. And that's the cover there by Liam Sharp, and inside it was Liam Sharp pencils with Andy Lanning and Bambus Georgiou for inks. But you can see the artwork here, it's pretty cool. Very patterned after Jim Lee in some regards, as was everyone doing at the time, given Jim Lee's success with X-Men comics. There you get a look at Death's Head 2 there. And the colours on this pretty good as well. So if any of you out there want me to review Death's Head 2, the miniseries, let me know in the comments to this video. But let's get back to X-Men 35. Open this one up to the first page. And we have the title of the story, Sunset Grace. And the creative team here: Fabian Nicieza, writer; Liam Sharp, guest penciler; Robin Riggs, guest inker; Bill Oakley, letterer; and Digital Chameleon, credited with the color art. That is Lovern Kindersky's computer studio. So, big kiss between Scott and Jean, and that's because they haven't seen each other in their own bodies in a decade, because they've been sent into the future to fight Apocalypse, but also to raise, as it turned out, Scott's son Nathan Christopher, aka Cable, as a young boy. And they did that in the bodies of 2 other people whom they possessed, and they were known as Slim. Scott was known as Slim and Jean as Red to young Nathan. And they've returned now from those adventures that were told in the Cyclops and Phoenix limited series. And you can see already on this first page the features of Liam Sharp's design, his investment in design throughout the issue. So there's no need for these gutters on, well, what appear to be gutters in the background of Scott and Jean's kiss, but as it turns out, they are somewhere very specific. And if I turn the page, you shall see that they are aboard the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier. And if anything involves S.H.I.E.L.D. in Marvel Comics, you're going to have Nick Fury along for the ride. And there he is, looking pretty cool in his 90s armor there. And we have an explanation from Nick as he smokes his cigarette there. Also, this is pre-Joe Quesada becoming president of Marvel Comics, and not president, but editor-in-chief, and banning the depiction of smoking in the comics. So Fury here explains, 2 hours ago, a S.H.I.E.L.D. Esper unit found the both of you washed up on St. Bart's Beach, because that's where Scott and Jean went for their honeymoon. They went to the Caribbean. The doc said you were fine physically, but weren't registering any brain activity at all, flatline. That's because they were in the future. So they're shocked by this. 2 hours, exclaims Cyclops, but we spent 12 years. Don't you see, Scott? It was Rachel. So here is Rachel Summers with the distinctive Phoenix markings, but at an older age. She sent us back almost to the very minute the Ascani took us. So Nick Fury doesn't understand what they're babbling about. There are bigger problems to deal with, and it means so do the two of they have bigger problems to deal with. And this is our story. There is this woman that they met when they were on their honeymoon. Her real name is Grace Lavereau, age 59, widowed. and apparently she's a mutant. From the information we've been able to gather, says Fury, over the last couple of hours, this little lady may be responsible for the end of the world. So there's a spatial rift that's opened up on the island, and Fury says it's an interdimensional fissure. I call it trouble, and it's growing worse by the minute. Interesting choice here to have Scott and Jean standing on the horizon line. So Nick Fury appears smaller there as he's closer to the video screen, beaming back images of what's going on down on the island. So let's continue here. So we've got this big anchor image of Jean. She looks how many heads tall? 12, 13 heads tall. Heroic proportions, yes. And she says they'll do whatever they can to help, but she's worried she's worried that she and Scott may not be enough to handle this. So what about calling in the X-Men? No. So Fury explains here, there's no time for that. The rift is growing exponentially. In a few hours, it'll swallow the whole blasted planet. And in the end, it ain't so much what I think the two of you can do, it's what she thinks. You see, kids, Sunset Grace asked for both of you to help her, so that stuns them. Pretty nice artwork on this page from Sharp, looking visually very attractive work. And look at this is even better. So he gets to draw them trekking through the jungle of the island after a tense 30-minute debriefing. And I like this little detail of the boot under the water there. That's nicely done, and showing off what's possible now with the digital coloring as well. It meshes really well with Sharp and Riggs's art here on the page. So why are they trekking through the jungle rather than flying a scout craft near the rift? It's too dangerous, says Fury. I like the detail here of this huge backpack that he's carrying. It's pretty cool, and all the foliage here and the waterfall as well, and the little dragonfly too. Obviously Liam Sharp enjoyed himself drawing this particular page, and it puts me in mind of the Savage Land issues that Jim Lee drew of Uncanny X-Men, and maybe Sharp had those in mind too, because he's doing something of a Jim Lee impression here, but he also has his own style as well, and some of the influences on his style are Simon Bisley, another British artist, and so he has a distinctive look, but he is leaning into that Jim Lee influence also for this particular issue. And also the art that he's producing here, which is top notch, he definitely is doing that because he knows he is on display here in one of the industry's top selling comics at the time, which is what X-Men Volume 2 was back in 1994. So they arrive at the SHIELD base, this temporary setup base, and they get into their costumes supplied by SHIELD with these yellow, orange and blue color themes, which look pretty decent actually, and they've got a proper visor for Cyclops as well, and they go through the rift into the well, actually what happens is Jean gets drawn into the rift. She's trying to telepathically scan it from their side, but she gets pulled in, and then Cyclops, what's he going to do? Well, he's a hero, so he jumps in after her despite Fury trying to hold him back. So here we go. This is something that Liam Sharp kind of began to lean into in the 90s, doing a lot of design work on the page. So we've got this big side profile of Cyclops with the visor and all the hatching on the lines of his face here. Looks pretty cool. And then just this kind of almost DeLuca effect of Cyclops being held back by Fury, then blasting away, not at Fury, and launching himself using his optic blast into the rift. And then he makes it through to the other side. Well, I've made dumber moves in my day, he says. And so here we are inside this weird dimensional space. And he uses his optic blast to bounce around down to where Jean is. And she has found the SHIELD team that was sent in to the rift originally and that Fury lost contact with, and were worried that they might be dead, but they're not. They're still conscious, so that's some good news at least. And I like Sharp's design of this interdimensional space. So we've got the mushrooms up here on the tree branch. We've got the sundial here on this little what would we call it, like floating tree and earth here. We've got a sword here. We've got this staff with the bird skull and the wings as well. So there's a lot of motifs running through the issue. We'll see star and moon, half moon motif running as well. So let's continue. Oh, there we go. There's this half moon and star on this pendant that is obviously gravity's working strangely here because it's floating upwards. So we've got a hug between Cyclops and Phoenix, and you get to see there Liam Sharp's anatomy work, pretty good. And then Jean uses her TK to send the shield guys back out the other side of the rift, aided by Cyclops using his optic blast to push them out. So he's got some control on that blast when he has his ruby quartz visor, so he's not doing them any damage, and they're in a telekinetic cocoon that Jean creates for them. So these two well used to working together. And I like the rendition of Cyclops's back muscles there as well. That's nicely done by Sharp, who in his real life is a bit of a bodybuilder, so he knows muscle groupings and all that. This is a very detailed page. This is a pretty cool page with the tree here in the middle, and again this kind of effect without panel borders, showing Cyclops and Phoenix making their way down this stairway across this wooden bridge, along these floating pavement steps, and then down to face Sunset Grace, as it turns out to be. And we have those emblems, like we've got a wind chime there, we've got the star here, there's the half moon. Yeah, so pretty interesting. And nice use of shadow and light on Cyclops here as well. This is a pretty cool page in terms of its design, and a little bit of Watchmen in the background here with the 9-panel grid, and a flipping back and forth between the dimension, Sunset Grace's dimension, and the shield heli carrier and Fury aboard there. So I like this little funny bit here as well between Fury and this guy Richter. He says, as the rift seems to become active, he says, "Wonderful, tell me some good news, Richter." And the guy says to him, "Well, we were able to rig up an EM bypass, and the coffee machine is working now. Black as night, 2 sugars," says Fury immediately. So that's his major focus, you know. Fury, pretty calm, given all his experience in danger situations over the years. So then we back in the Grace's dimension there. She begins to reveal what's going on, how she thought she'd never return to the dimension again. Meanwhile, back on the helicarrier, not the helicarrier, but actually the emergency setup, out pop the surveillance team, and they're alive. So that's good, but Fury's worried now as he relights his cigar about the 2 kids, just when those kids' lives were about to start for real, you know, getting back from their honeymoon. And so Grace is telling them here as she floats off the ground about her backstory, that she was on the beach looking for shells, and she heard a scream, but not out loud. "I heard it in my mind," she says, "down the beach away." So this is Scott and Jean when their souls were transported into the future. And Sunset Grace says, "I could feel it tearing my own heart apart. And in that instant, as both of you were thinking you were going to die, all your confusion, all your fear was focused on the one thought, that you were being robbed of a life together," because we're going to get this theme through the rest of the issue that parallels what happened to Cyclops and Jean in the future. So she continues and says, and that thought so full of regret and love opened up feelings, emotions inside of me that had been buried for 25 years. And so she gets to the nub of it all, where 25 years earlier, she is saying that, for the first time, before she gets to her backstory, she says, it took her a while after she felt the scream to feel strong enough to stand up. It was all coming back, you see, flooding over her. And after keeping the memories pushed back like a dam, holding back the past, the dike burst and the gift came back. Don't remember getting home. I was really stumbling, really lost in a panicked haze. My mutant powers, Charlie called them, so she knows Charles Xavier, came spilling out of me. I had no control over them. And at the exact same spot where I'd last used them years ago, the sky ripped apart. So that's that here. And then we get the backstory about this, her powers, and how it gave her access to this dimension, which she called Never Neverland. And every day, with every trip she made there as a girl, this world got a little bit bigger. But as I grew older, reality got in the way of my fantasy. And unlike Peter Pan, I finally grew up. Marriage, children, they have a way of taking from you as much as they do of giving to you, understand? So here we have that represented here. This is a great page by Liam Sharp. Looks really, really good. I especially like this rendering of a kind of like a quasi Greco-Roman city atop these big walls here, and the mushrooms, and then of course the motif of the star and half moon pendant as well. And there she is getting married. So nicely done. And then here comes the trauma for Sunset Grace. So they're out one night driving, raining heavily, and the car goes off the side of the road through the barrier there and over the edge of a cliff. And she says she didn't want to see her family die in front of her eyes. She wanted everything to be all right again, to be a child once more when things like death couldn't happen. She had no control over what happened next. I felt a shove on the gift inside of my soul, on my mutant powers, and I let them through into the dimensional rift. So Cyclops says, you sent the car here, and your husband and son too? Of course, says Jean. We saw the signs when we first came through the rift, the remains of the guardrail, the roadway, and the rusted mangled sedan, but it all seems so unreal. And she keeps calling them Charlie Child or Charlie Children. Like make-believe, eh? That's what this place always was for me. Then it became my nightmare, she says. See, after they fell through, the door closed behind them. And it had been too many years since I travelled here. I couldn't find the door inside of me anymore. It only opened up because I was so desperate at the time. I lost the gift and I couldn't get it back. For months after losing them, I couldn't talk or walk or even think. And that's when Professor X came to visit her, because she was a mutant, obviously. He was younger then. He touched her inside her mind, he did, and she thought, what a lovely boy. And how odd, so much humanity in someone so young, she says. Slowly he put the pieces of my soul together, but we couldn't find the key to unlock Never Neverland again. It was lost to me, they were lost to me, until I found the two of you. So interesting. And another nicely designed page with the weird effect of the acute angles on the floating trees here. And also, did you notice this? It is a side profile of Death's Head 2 as well, here on the cover. So the character that Liam Sharp was most associated with to that point, because the design of Death's Head 2 as opposed to Death's Head 1 was his. So pretty cool with the double lighting as well on this kind of cliff face carved like Death's Head 2. So then we get Jean telepathically communicating with Scott regarding maybe what's going on. And also this is a great montage here of calling back to X Factor 68 and Scott sending young Nathan Christopher into the future with Ascani, and then Executioner's Song and the fight between Cable and Strife. And here Jean says Jean says here to Scott that their time in the future was a chance to give life and meaning to Nate, to provide him with hope that his life has a greater purpose. We were given a chance to do right by your son, Scott. In many ways, to do right by us, to fulfill all the expectations and demands we've placed on ourselves since the very day we met. And then Scott fills in, and they all have tears in their eyes, and Grace had that chance taken from her. So that's that kind of thematic parallel there. She didn't have a chance to live out her life with her husband and especially her young boy. And Scott and Jean have had that miraculous opportunity by being brought into the future and having those 10 years to help Nathan Christopher grow up. So interesting that. And then Jean here, nice profile of Jean by Sharp and Robin Riggs. And this is a distinctive feature of his female faces, that they have a very small nose and a big forehead. So distinctive of Liam Sharp, and these very full lips as well. So she telepathically communicates with Sunset Grace, and she says, look inside and see the kindness, the decency I see in herself, that anyone can see within you. The guilt you've been carrying for so long, the blame you placed on yourself, none of it has to weigh you down anymore. So now she can see her family. So she sees her husband there and her son, and we see those pendant motifs. So the husband has the star and the son the half moon, and then the family's reunited here. But something's not exactly right. So Sunset Grace says to Jean, I did the right thing then, child, by sending them here to Never Never Land, didn't I? And Jean is kind of hesitating. Of course you did. The only thing you could, Grace, to try and save your family. And I did save them. They're here. I did save them, she says. Oh, my precious ones, we're together at last. But Jean is about to tell her the truth. Grace, you don't understand. But Grace doesn't want to hear, or it's not so much she doesn't want to hear. She's overjoyed by being reunited with her husband and son, that she's not listening. And she says about family and family bonds, the sum of the parts are never as strong as the whole. So Jean then just concludes and says, take them, let them back into your heart, which is what she does. And we are at the end of the story. Let them in as you let us out. So Fury's here at the entrance to the rift. I like the magenta color here. And then Scott and Jean emerge from the rift. They're back. They're in towels. Fury's having that. Black coffee, 2 sugars, and his cigar. And asks them the obvious question, what in Sam Hill happened in there? Where's the woman? So now we get what happened in the conclusion. So Jean says she decided to stay inside her own little world, Fury. Before we left, Grace told us that our life was just starting, and that we had given her the chance to end hers with happiness in her heart, a happiness she hadn't felt in decades. It's over, Colonel. Oh no, it was Scott that was speaking there. You sure about that, Summers? And Scott says, definitely. Grace closed the rift from the inside. She found what she needed to in there. She has no reason to leave ever again. So hours later, we get the true story. Scott says, Jean, I have to ask you something. When you call Grace's husband and son, you seem so sad. Where were they all that time? And Jean replies, where they've been since the moment they died in that car accident, Scott, all those years ago, locked inside her heart, inside her memories. So Scott says, when she opened the portal to save them during the accident, it was too late, wasn't it? Yeah, so it was. So what Jean has allowed Sunset Grace is a life some people could only dream of, a chance to be safe, happy and whole with the family she loves. All in all, Scott, that's not too bad a way to come back from our honeymoon. And he concludes, not a bad way to start a new life at all, Jean. And there's the staff with the half moon and the star as well in the water by the cliff's edge. So really interesting, done in one story. a way of bringing Scott and Jean back into the comics after their honeymoon in the future, and to catch readers up on what happened there if they missed the miniseries at the time, as I did, due to, well, the fact that I wasn't made of money at the time. And I really appreciated at the time, and still do today, Liam Sharp's artwork on this particular issue. And then we've got this pretty cool final image here promoting the upcoming Phalanx Covenant storyline and the beginning of Generation X. So when Scott concludes there about not a bad way to start a new life at all. I like this, a new life which may be only 30 days away from ending. The Phalanx Covenant begins in Uncanny X-Men 316. So nice drawings here of Banshee, Sabretooth here looking really, really beefed up, and White Queen and Jubilee. So, oh, and here's a full page ad for the storyline with all the issues you need for the complete storyline by Joe Madureira, inked by Terry Austin. And then there's a 2-page letters page concerning issues 31 and 32, the final wrapping up of the Revanche Psylocke storyline, and also a lot of plugging for the upcoming Rogue mini limited series here, for example. So I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on X-Men Volume 2, number 35. If you did, please like the video on YouTube, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.